to the new episode of Think Through podcast. Today, we are diving into an incredibly important topic that is mental health. I am glad and honored to be joined by Dr. Pamela Buchanan, a passionate mental health advocate who has been working to raise awareness, break stigmas, and empower individuals to take care of their emotional and mental well being. Dr. Buchanan, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. And anytime I can talk about mental health, I'm all for it.
I am grateful for your time today. And I'm really excited for our chat because mental health is a topic, as I said, is very close to my heart. And there's honestly so much I would love to discuss about it. But I'm going to hold
Yes.
my horses and we'll take one step at a time. I usually start the conversation by asking our guests about what they do. I would love to ask you what inspired you to become a mental health advocate.
Well, so I've been a physician for the last 20 years and I've worked in primary care and ER. And I never really thought about mental health except for to treat it. I've written thousands of prescriptions for people's mental health. I never had any issues myself until the pandemic. And during the pandemic, you work and you overwork. I was working frontlines, emergency room. And at a point where all of a sudden, one day I was okay and one day I wasn't. I would have thoughts as I'm driving through on the way to work because it was apocalyptic, it was dark, it was desolate, nobody was on the roads. It was like movies where it was the end of days. And one day I had this kind of thought or sound like something was speaking to me as I drove across the bridge going to work, and it would say, jump in. And I thought I was just tired because remember, I was working 80, sometimes 100 hours. And so I completely ignored it, probably for months. And I just thought, I'm tired. And by the way, doctors are the worst at being patients. And so I knew I needed to get some help. I just didn't. I just kept working. And I took extra shifts. I thought, work harder. And like that was the answer to being well. And when I finally realized that I wasn't okay was when a colleague of mine who I admired a lot, who was my mentor, died by suicide. And you wouldn't have expected because it seemed like they had the perfect life. They were an ER doctor and they had a wife who was gorgeous, still is, beautiful children, and they were active in their church. And I thought if he could do that, then I could do that. I'm in danger too, so I went to get help. It was then that I realized how hard it is to get mental health services. I'm in America, and getting services here, uh, you know, does your insurance pay for it? And does that therapist take new patients? And we were at reduced services because it was still in the pandemic. So it was hard for me to get help. What helped me was a friend of mine. Her husband is a psychiatrist, so she made some suggestions. And so I finally got help. That's when I became an advocate. I thought it should not be this hard for anyone to be well. And then, quite frankly, I ended up paying out of my pocket tens of thousands of dollars to be well. And I think that that's just tragic. And that's why so many people are not well in the United States. And people die by suicide. And this is a special day in America. Today is National Physician Suicide Awareness Day in America, September 17th. And I'm an advocate for a physician or an ambassador for the Lorna Breen Foundation, an organization dedicated to preventing physician suicide. Because in America, one doctor per day dies by suicide.
Kidding.
No kidding. And I feel like I didn't know that ever until I became an advocate. And I don't think people know it. I don't think it's talked about enough.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps.
And it's crazy because if you think about the average graduating medical school class, it's about 150, 200 kids are young adults. And so we're losing a whole medical school class every year of doctors who are dying by suicide. So like they're dying faster than we're pumping them out.
Your story on how you started advocating mental health, Dr. Buchanan, is really inspiring. And I want to know What have you found that helps you maintain your own mental well being while doing this important work?
I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of introspection. I've done a lot of therapy. And I have a physician coach. I probably think that the thing that helped me the most was a physician coach. But I have a daily practice. Like I do the same thing every day. I make sure I move my body. I try to eat real food, make sure I'm well hydrated, and I surround myself around positive people. So I have a squad that I always check in with. And I tend to my mental health. I don't overwork myself. And I realize that I can't do all things. And so I work with my body's energy. If I'm tired, I sleep. I didn't always do that because
Hmm.
when you're a doctor, you're taught to push through, go, to be a martyr. And I'm done with that. I'm no martyr. I'm no superhero. I'm just a person.
Yeah, and you mentioned about these things which are pretty simple, but we take for granted, like moving your body, like being physically active, staying hydrated. I sometimes, like, when I am on site, I disregard that fact, or I probably just take it for granted to have water like every 15-30 minutes. But it affects
So
our mind.
I do these things because I know I don't intuitively do them. But when I do these things, I feel better. And so I have to say with intentionality, today we need to have a protein with some vegetables and make sure we have water with it instead of just grabbing whatever I can. Like, tonight I'm having like 5 ounces of beef and some spinach, and it's all intentional. And make sure I get at least 64 ounces of water. Your body's made of 67% water. All of these things work to make the body work the way it's supposed to work. And when you don't do these simple things, it's like doctors are the worst at doing the things we tell everybody else to do. And, you know, moving your body. When you exercise, and after a vigorous exercise, there are some studies that say it's impossible to feel stress at that point. I know I feel better when I exercise.
Yeah, simple things can affect your mental health. Um, I recently watched your TED Talk, which is uploaded on YouTube, I think from a year back. And within the first few minutes of your talk, I realized you had at least mentioned thrice that it is okay to not be okay. I'd love to know what was that turning point in your life that made you realize the importance of gracefully embracing the fact that it is okay to not be okay on some days.
So, when you are a high achieving person, like most doctors, like all doctors are, to just become a doctor, you're a high achiever. We don't like to lose. We don't like to admit any defeat, and we view things that are not defeat as defeat. Like, I thought that it was a failure to be a doctor who had depression. Like, and I felt like I didn't have the right to be depressed. Like, why would I be depressed? I'm a high income earner. I have a happy family, a happy life, and kids are doing what they want to do. I have more than enough, and there are people who are in worse positions than me. So I felt like I didn't have that right. And one thing about therapy, it gave me permission to feel what I feel. If you're feeling sad, it's okay. If you're feeling anxious, it's okay. Whatever it is that you're feeling, that is what you're feeling. And to deny it is going against your whole body's biology, and it makes things worse. So that's why it's okay to not be okay, so that you can address that problem, so that you're on the road to being better.
Hmm. Acceptance is the first step, and to accept the fact that it is okay to not be okay will probably help you take future steps to address the problem.
That's what I think. And I think many of the doctors who, I can't speak for them, they're not here, but I know how I felt when I wanted to not be here, is that I just didn't want to feel bad anymore. And I had to accept that sometimes you will feel bad, and that's okay. And then I need help to feel better, and that's okay.
Yeah. And the interesting point was when I was watching your TED Talk video, there were multiple comments that thanked you for just saying that it is okay to not be okay. And this made me think, and I would like to know your perspective on it. Do you think it is difficult for people even today to accept not be okay?
I know it is. I know it is because, you know, I'm I see people in the ER when they are going through this and they may be suicidal and they may have depression, anxiety, or the like. And, and they'll say, oh no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a little stressed. They don't want to label, right? They don't want to label. They don't want to call it a thing. And I think calling it a thing so that you can name that thing, tackle it, and root it out is the way we need to approach it.
Yeah. Do you think society is making progress in how we talk about mental health, or are we still missing the mark?
We have a ways to go because I think the problem is for me in medicine, we talk about mental health and then we talk about healthcare. I think all of it is healthcare. I think that we need to accept that there's a mind body connection and not separate the two because mental health is healthcare. And
Hmm.
just the fact that we separate it, it still makes it so we're holding on to the stigma of it all.
Hmm. Interesting. And do you see, or what kind of changes would you like to see in workplaces or universities or even in healthcare system around mental health?
Well, specifically, that's my main point of advocacy is seeing change in healthcare systems, realizing that the kinds of work that most doctors do, I think all doctors, I'm sorry, is traumatic. Because every type of doctor, from psychiatry to ER to ICU, family medicine, and everything in between, will have periods of time where we lose patients. And that in and of itself is traumatic. And then there are some types of specialties that have high repetitive trauma on a in a condensed form, such as ICU and ER, wherein your patients are sick all the time, and you may lose patients more often than other specialties. There's no mental health services in our healthcare systems, and there should be. It should be automatic. It should be regular. It should be if you see some terrible trauma that you automatically it probably should be mandated that you get some help. And the way I think about this is because in the ER, most of your friends, many of your friends and colleagues will be um, uh, paramedics and policemen. Paramedics and policemen have many of them. I know the ones in my county have mandated therapy services for when they see bad calls, like gruesome car accident. You lose a heart patient, maybe you lost a baby or something like that. And so they have to get therapy, check in. Nobody ever asks me to check in, and I'm the receiving end of whatever gross thing they saw. I, I've had some PTSD, and definitely from the pandemic. There was a specific lady who, as she was dying, she grabbed my arm and squeezed it tight. And I remember as she was dying, I felt the life force going out of her. And for many, many months in my sleep, there would be someone who would crawl into my kitchen through the patio and grab my leg and squeeze it and then let go. And so that was something I had to work through. I've had a patient who burned. He was burned really bad, looked like charcoal. So I don't barbecue for that reason. It really triggers me. I had to pay for my own mental health, and I don't think that's fair.
No. Yeah, and while talking to you, I realized that probably doctors need to be healthy, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally, because only when they are healthy, they are happy and they love their job, should they be able to take care of others.
Exactly. And you would think that administration would understand that because, I think in America they have this saying when they go, happy wife, happy life, right? I think happy doctor, happy patient. And so we're focused on in America, like in my hospital, they measure these things called press ganey scores. They measure um, the happiness of the patient satisfaction, right? It should be measuring physician nurse satisfaction. Because if the physicians and the nurses are happy and healthy, then they will do a good job for the patient. It will trickle down. And that is the thing that we are getting so wrong in my profession.
Yeah, eventually, even doctors are human beings.
Yes, and we need to care for the people who care for others. And then when we're thinking about that, what else do we need to do? I personally speak on this a lot when I'm speaking at conferences, when I'm coaching people, when I'm doing workshops. I speak about how purpose is the prescription for burnout. And so when you know your purpose, you know the best of what you have to give others. And finding your purpose, it's never been easier because it's a scientific process. You can, you know, go to this website that my colleagues built, and it's called the Purpose Factor Assessment. They did 10 years of research. That was the thing that really, really helped me figuring out like what's the best thing that I have to give to others? What was I made to do? And I think that's really missing, that doctors are not connected to their why. Because when you're connected to your why, you're more resilient and you can get through the hard times, because being a doctor is hard. And so when you're a doctor, you have to be resilient and you have to take care of yourself. That's why I think it's important to do daily practices, because you never know what you're going to walk into.
Yeah, very thought provoking. Was there a time early on when you faced stigma or pushback for speaking openly about mental health, being a doctor yourself?
I wouldn't know because I stopped caring. I stopped caring as to whether or not it was stigmatized. And what I know is that if it is stigmatized, so many people are saying, like, you said what I've been through. You're saying what I'm thinking. And the fact that one doctor per day dies by suicide means that we got a problem.
Yeah, I was recently reading a book about mental strength, and it had a statement something on the lines that mental strength isn't about ignoring your emotions but accepting and managing them well. How would you maintain your mental strength even during times when you feel the most vulnerable?
I get that. Like I said before, knowing my purpose, knowing exactly why I do what I do. Um, I know that I love being a doctor. I love helping. And when I did the assessment, it found that I'm a recruiter, meaning that I like to draw people to a cause. I like to pull people in and say, hey, this thing is going on. What are we going to do about it? That gets me going. And, so in my work as an emergency room doctor, I like to talk to the patients and say, yeah, you came in and looks like you're having a heart attack, but the overreaching problem are these other things. And so I educate so that they can get better. Or if the best time to get them is like right when they think or they're threatening to have an issue. Like a perfect example is called a TIA, which is a mini stroke. That's what people call it. Meaning this is the step where you had a stroke, but it wasn't a big one. And if you change things right now, you won't have the big stroke. I love those kinds of moments, being able to, educate and advocate that we make a change now so that we don't have the big problem later. So that, ties into why I speak about mental health, because I feel that there's a crisis coming on, and especially in healthcare. We're already got a deficit. Before the pandemic, we already knew that we wouldn't have enough primary care doctors. We already knew that the population of the baby boomers was going to catch up to us, and we weren't going to have enough people to take care of. And we already knew this, doctors and nurses. Take that pandemic, and now 40% of the workforce left after the pandemic. 40% are doing other things. And then you add on the fact that physicians are dying by suicide. We can't afford to lose any more doctors. And that's why I am so convicted that we need to make changes. We need to make a healthier workforce, and we need to care for those who care for other people, be doctors and nurses, and there should be wellness programs in every single institution that practices medicine, from hospitals to clinics and everything in between.
Hmm. If someone listening to this podcast wanted to become a mental health advocate in their own way, maybe starting small, just within their own circle of friends, what advice would you give to them?
I would say that's probably one of the most noble things you can do. And make sure that you're truly passionate and purpose filled about that particular mission, because it's not for the faint at heart. And it's simple, just listening, being there, and seeking out education. There's different avenues. You could be a general mental health advocate versus a suicide prevention. You can work on a hotline and volunteer your time, get trained in that. You could be a person who has in substance use disorder because that's type of mental illness, and there's a whole gamut. So really seek out and make sure that's part of your purpose and mission. I advise that you check to see what your purpose is first and go from there.
Lovely. What's one misconception about mental health you wish more people understood?
I wish more people really understood and accepted that it's okay to not be okay. Because when I saw my therapist, one thing she gave me was permission. Permission to feel what I feel. Permission to just be like, I'm not always strong. And that sometimes I need help. And that's okay. Just ever since that time, I just take time and go, I'm not okay today. I don't feel good today. And, I might clear my schedule and say, today is not the day. And that's okay. I'm like so okay with days where I'm not being okay. And I also accept how I am because I'm on the
Hmm.
spectrum. I have ADHD, right? And so the fact that I'm able to hold a conversation right now is doing good because it's the end of the day and usually I run out of mental capacity. But the only reason I'm able to have mental capacity is because we're talking about something I really care about. I would
Hmm.
not be able to have this conversation if it was something that I had to do but did not like to do. I save those tasks for the beginning of the day. And so just knowing my brain and knowing how it works and working with my biology instead of against it has been a game changer too. That's been a game changer.
Love it. You are really inspirational, Dr. Buchanan. Well, we just started recording podcast. You said that you're a person who believes in prayers, faith, and miracles. Where does that come from? Or has it developed over time?
So I'm a Christian. I was raised Christian, and I believe in that 10 toes down a lot. And, I think my career has enhanced that. I have seen people be in some horrible situations where I thought it was over. They are surely dead. There's nothing I can do. And then all of a sudden, they are not dead, you know? And I think that I know that's a miracle. I've had patients who've had bad head injuries, and I hear from my partners in the ICU, that guy woke up. I'm like, how? And even more so now, more than ever, my family is dealing with that. My brother had a severe car accident and damaged his spinal cord. And we are praying and believing that he will get improved and better and get some feeling back in his upper extremities and his body and that he'll be walking again. And we are believing for a miracle.
You are a really strong person, and
Thank you.
more power to you and more strength to you. I want to leave the viewers with something memorable from your perspective. Tell me what gives you hope when challenges feel overwhelming.
Number one, my faith gives me hope. And the younger generation, like my children. And I love Gen Z. Like one of the things I love about Gen Z is they own their feelings. They're like, I feel anxious. I feel depressed. I love that for them. And it's permeating to older generations like myself.
Love it. Lovely. And it was an excellent conversation with you, Dr. Buchanan. I really appreciate our chat today. Thank you for joining me on this episode.
Yes, especially since you're a mental health advocate, and I'll still be advocating. This is the thing I'm gonna be doing until I'm an old lady. People who want to contact with me, they follow me on LinkedIn. That way you can download my guide on how you can stress less.
Perfect. The conversations like this, I think, remind us how important it is to normalize talking about mental health and support one another through challenges. I hope the viewers are leaving with not just awareness, but also encouragement to take small steps in their own lives to reach out for help when they need. Thank you again for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.